Welcome to the Zencast. My name is Dale Pickles. I'm the Managing Director of B Squared and I'm the host of the Zencast. If this is your first Zencast, then welcome. The aim of this podcast is really simple. We want to reach as many people as possible and help everyone learn more about special education needs and disability. On this week's episode, we discussed what do we mean by trauma-informed practice. And joining me this week was Dr Asha Patel, a qualified clinical psychologist and the founder and CEO of Innovating Minds, a multi-award winning social enterprise dedicated to early intervention in mental health. And she is a passionate advocate for mental health equity. The Zencast is powered by B Squared, and everyone knows we help schools to show the small steps of progress pupils with SEND make, and we do this for a wide range of ages and abilities. But do you know about Autism Progress? This is our framework for helping profile a pupil's autism and how it impacts them. It's based on certs and looks at communication, social interaction, emotional regulation and flexible thinking. Autism Progress also includes a wide range of strategies to help support the pupils. You can visit the B Square website or click on the meeting link in the show notes to book a meeting with me to take you through Autism Progress and our assessment software. But for now, let's get on with this podcast. This week, I'm joined by Dr Asha Patel, a qualified clinical psychologist and the founder and CEO of Innovating Minds, a multi-award winning social enterprise dedicated to early intervention in mental health. She is a passionate advocate for mental health equity and empowers frontline professionals to deliver trauma-informed psychological services to enable young people to access education, training and employment opportunities. Welcome to the show, Asha.
Hello. Thank you.
You're welcome. So trauma-informed practice. It's one of those phrases we hear all around, and when someone says, do you know what it means, they generally nod. But everyone is often, always, no, actually, let's say everyone probably doesn't know really what it means. They have a rough idea, but it's probably incorrect. So let's start right at the beginning. What is trauma-informed practice?
Yeah, and a really good question to start with, because as you say, it is bounced around quite a lot. The phrase, it's become quite a catchy buzzword. Now, what do we mean by trauma-informed practice? Trauma-informed practice is a way of being, and I think that's really important to start off with. So it's just not a switch that people can switch on and off to say, okay, I'm with this person who's experienced some form of trauma, so I'm going to behave in this particular way. I'm going to be in this way. So it's somebody that has an understanding of how they're feeling, if they're feeling safe, if they're feeling regulated, if they're feeling dysregulated, and how is that then perceived by somebody else. So if you think about, let's take a young person that we're interacting with that's struggling. Trauma-informed practice would mean that that adult that is there to support that young person would be going in at a place where they're safe, calm and regulated, that they're aware of how they're feeling. So they can then tune into that young person. And it's like that young person can borrow the adult's nervous system to help them to feel safe, calm and regulated again. What it also looks like is that adult is mindful of the language that they're using. So it's not blaming, it's not shaming, it's not humiliating the young person. It's also being really mindful about those unintended consequences that we hear about, where people do or say things and say, well, that actually wasn't that wasn't what I was intending to do. But actually that is what is taking place. So somebody being open to be able to reflect upon their practice, think about actually whose best interest is this in? Is it in mine or the young person's? And then also really thinking about how do they embed trauma-informed principles? So things like, are they doing things or asking this young person to retell their story related to trauma? And therefore, is it re-traumatizing that person? So even the systems of accessing help, are they designed in a way that don't re-traumatize people through the process that they're supposed to be accessing help from? Is it accessible? Is it inclusive? So if I think about myself, I'm Asian, so I'll walk into a room and I'll scan, my body's constantly scanning for cues of safety, cues of threat. One of those cues of threat, and one of the things that I'm scanning for is, does anybody else around here look like me? And often it's not the case. So we can take for granted, particularly if you're not an ethnic minority, that you're starting off from a place of safety. Whereas somebody from an ethnic minority might not have that guarantee of feelings of safety when stepping into a place. And it's perceived threat. So we're not saying there's actual threat, but our body is constantly scanning for that. So when we're talking about what is trauma-informed practice, and where I say it's a way of being and you can't shut it off, because even when you go into a supermarket and go shopping and you see that situation where a parent is struggling with their child, or the child maybe wants something and they're kicking and screaming, that we're not casting judgment, or we're not looking over to think, oh, they're not controlling their child and that child just needs to be told to get up. We're coming from a place of curiosity and empathy and looking to support instead of actually putting barriers and judgment. So it happens in everywhere that you go, even when you go to a hotel. Where you choose to sit, is the music too loud? Are we aware of the sensory experiences that we're having? So yeah, it includes so much.
But I like that bit there where you said it's about that curiosity. It's about asking rather than jumping to a conclusion. It's just that pausing and going, why? I think to me, that's a big bit that I've learned. And it's one of the things I've literally, and we've done a panel discussion together where I was the host,
Yeah.
and I'm literally going, yeah, this all makes sense. And it's one of the things I kind of do it already, because what I've learned in life is generally people are doing the best they can with what they have, and what they have is in terms of money and a knowledge and experience and time, and all those things all eat at you and reduce your options and opportunities and how you deal with things. So I think it's important that actually making sure you've got time with your children and not going for that quick blame, move on. It's actually helping them understand and all that sort of stuff. And generally they're not being naughty, air quoting naughty. They're not understanding, or something's gone wrong that we haven't as a parent understood, or as a teacher haven't understood. And rather than blaming them, it's taking that opportunity to understand and go, cool. Okay, so here are some options you could have taken. But it's not about blame. It's that taking that step back and going, well, why? And I think that's the sort of thing, as you said, you can't switch it on. You can't suddenly walk into school and walk into your class and go, right, I'm trauma informed now. It's got to be, and this is a bit, again, listening to various people talk about it, and you just said it there, it's a way of being. You can't be judgmental in that situation and completely non-judgmental. That judgment, if you're judgmental, that judgment will always be that you've kind of got to let go of it. You've got
And
to
it's
let
that,
go of it all and get to this bit. And as you said, it becomes your way of being.
yeah, and it's that being able to see it from a position of a switch in the language. And I think the way that you think about it. So if we automatically thought about it as a trauma reaction, we'd respond to it very differently. So if we think about this child's been naughty, this child's been manipulative, this adult is behaving in this way and it's unreasonable, if we switched it and said, actually, this is a trauma reaction and this is a help seeking, it's a way to seek help, or it's a way to connection seek, our response would be very different if we saw it in that way. And that's how what we're trying to do is, how do we rephrase things, and how do we not get switched into problem solving and start asking these questions when somebody's in this emotional state, this heightened emotional distress, that then we start saying, well, what could we have done differently? What could you do differently? Because actually what we know from a biology point of view and like a neuroscience is that our thinking part of the brain is switched offline anyway. So then we're starting asking all these questions and these cognitive kind of things where what could you do differently? How do you think that other person felt? What was that like for me? You really let yourself down. All of those things. Well, that part of the brain is not switched online anyway. So a child or an adult is either going to tell you what you want to hear to stop the conversation, or you're going to experience where you think that they're just dismissing you, or they're even more annoying that they start to grin or something or smile, and you reinterpret that they think it's funny. And actually it's not. It's the fawn response of where it becomes a way of trying to protect themselves in that situation.
And you started with all of that. And it's that sort of thing. And I think it is ultimately key. And I think it's where I think a lot of people in this modern world struggle. It's about being regulated. And you talked about them kind of borrowing your nervous system. So you have to have that capacity. So you have to, whatever's in front of you, you've got to be calm. You've got to be regulated, which again is part of the reason you can't just turn it on. You've kind of not got to carry all your own personal baggage with you. You've got to manage and deal with that so that you can be that calm, non-judgmental person, because it is going to take you time. Therefore, you can't really be late for anything. You can't be going, I've got 2 seconds to deal with this, blah, and on I go because I haven't got time for this. That you've kind of got to let go of, haven't you?
So there's also the reality as well, because people will be thinking, well, what are you talking about? I've got loads of tasks to do, and I just have literally 2 seconds, and that's okay. So it's not saying you've just got to stop doing what you've got to do, but actually, if you're aware of how you're feeling, how your body's feeling, and you can feel that you're starting to feel dysregulated, because you're going to be throughout the day, because you're probably going jumping from one crisis to another, and there's all sorts of curveballs being thrown your way that you're trying to catch in between everything else that you're trying to do. But if you're aware and attuned to your body and how your body's feeling, then you can use that as a resource, because you can just stop, and it takes a few seconds, either take a deep breath, do some progressive muscle relaxation exercise, whatever works for you to calm your own nervous system and help that to feel safe and calm. So even if you are interacting with anybody for 2 seconds, that interaction is going to be an intervention in itself. So it doesn't necessarily mean how much time you can spend with somebody. You might even just be passing somebody. If you can offer a smile or an acknowledgement, you're radiating positivity, energy, like calmness, that in itself is great. And it's more, and yeah, if a lot of adults and children don't get that opportunity every day. So if we're in a position to provide that for somebody, they've had something that they've not had the experience of.
I wonder how many people start a conversation with, oh, I haven't got any time. What is it? And then they have a conversation which they actually did have enough time for, but almost like the fact you start with that and your mindset is, I'm already further on. You're not actually going to be in a mindset to help in that situation. And that whole bit about I've got to get here, you said, breathe, calm and breathe and know this is what I've got to do. And rather than starting with, I haven't got time for you, which is immediately putting barriers up, you've got to be just changing to, are you okay? Without mentioning what your issues are, 'cause that's your dysregulation, that's your needs. Rather than you putting that on them, you're actually trying to offer them some of your calmness and just that moment of pausing and going, are you okay? And you might find it takes the exact same amount of time as if you started with, I do not have time for this, but the outcome will be different.
Yeah. And when actually somebody says, I don't have time, what you're really saying is you're not a priority, or this is not a priority. So we use time as a bit of an excuse. And that's okay. It might not be a priority, but that's what you're basically saying. So I'd say be mindful if when you're using that phrase of actually what you are saying is it's not a priority. But asking questions like, how are you feeling? So often we ask, what are you doing? how are you? But if we ask how are you feeling, that helps people to stop and think, actually, how am I feeling? What are they? Because we either dismiss them, or we have dismissed our feelings, or we suppress them because of our own experiences, or actually you might have just not attuned to actually how are you feeling in this moment, or how you've been feeling this morning, whatever's been going through the day. So, and what you said as well around really triggered something around, often we can go in with our own agenda and we're trying to get people to do what we want them to do. So you get fixated on that. Whereas if you let that go, of course, you've got a task to be done. But actually, if you go at a pace that they want to go at and stop trying to fill gaps or push your own agenda, then the more likely they're going to come onto that journey with you.
And one of the things I've learned, which I literally gone, oh, that's a bit trauma informed, that bit, is I wonder how many families have issues around dinner time and getting people to the table. So the mum or the dad says, right, dinner, and then people aren't turning up and they're chasing them. And then there's anger, both sides, because you were late. Yeah, but I was playing my game. Yeah, and it's just, and again, what you've done is, as an adult, you've decided when dinner is. You've put your agenda and you've just said this is when dinner is. And one of the things I learned is we had this issue. And what I learned is my daughter was playing online games, and you can't leave those games. You get penalised. So you can't pause them. And if you quit partway through, you get penalised. So she doesn't want to quit for various reasons, and it makes sense. And those games last 10 minutes. So all I did was change. When it's about 15 minutes to dinner, I would just pop upstairs, didn't shout, and she went, dinner's in 15 minutes. And she'd go, cool. And she knew not to start another game. And generally she was down 3-4 minutes beforehand. We had a lovely conversation. She started telling me about her day, and we were all there for dinner. It's a slight change. We still had dinner at the exact same time, but I just changed my agenda to include them and be more reasonable with my expectations of them. I didn't just give them no warning and go dinner. And it had a completely different outcome.
Yeah.
And I know it is the same, but it's not the same. But it is that kind of, it's not my agenda setting the tone or the rules. I'm being more considerate.
And that's what it is. That's like the essence of it. And when people are like, oh, I'm like, yeah, it doesn't need to be overcomplicated. And I think this is where we get lost, because actually sometimes we're like, well, no, I'm the parent. I'm telling you when, and when I shout, you come. And because sometimes generational trauma, generation parenting styles, etc., will creep in. So there might be times where you'll do something as a parent and think, gosh, I remind myself of either my mum or my dad or whoever it is that was your parent carer. And you might slip into those ways. And even though you're like, I don't want to do it that way, I want to do it different. When you're all dysregulated, when you've got a lot, might be work's busy, home life's busy, there's some family stuff going on, that you might find yourself slipping into those. But the fact that you've been curious enough and thought, actually, I'm going to try something else, and it's worked and it's working for the family, and actually you've got a better relationship, interaction with your daughter, because it's no longer shouting and you're thinking, I've cooked food and now it's getting cold, and that's been dismissed, and you're not bothered and you should cook your own food, and all of that kind of spiral you go through. And that's what trauma-informed practice is about. And does it matter if the person's experienced trauma or not? Do you need to know? No, absolutely not. And that's what's a bugbear of mine, is why do we call it trauma-informed? It should just be our way of being. Like, I don't know why we have to have experienced trauma to be nice to people in this way.
And I think that's one of the things when I heard trauma-informed practicing for the first time, you're like, wow, they've got some really difficult kids here. There's a lot of trauma going on. Wow. And I kind of, when I first heard the term, I thought it was for like the most extreme children who had real trauma. And then when you actually peel it back, it's no, it's the lessons we've learned from trauma that really work. We've then realised apply everywhere. But actually, because it's in comfort, they go, oh, we mentioned back to trauma. But in reality, trauma's ultimately got nothing way to do it. It just makes a really good impact then, but it makes a really good impact everywhere. Seeing that word trauma, people think, oh, it's really most complicated. They're someone who's had trauma. No. Everyone.
And everybody's experienced some form of trauma because it's either something that happened to you or hasn't happened to you. So even throughout your day or whatever it is, we will have all experienced a form of trauma. Whether we recognize it and label it as trauma is different. But my sister said exactly the same thing. Why do you have to call it trauma? Because that puts her off straight away. So we've got completely different parenting styles. And I'm like, no, this is a trauma. She's like, can't you just think of another word for it? She's like, and then I might get on board with it. But as soon as she hears the word trauma, she's like, that's not me.
It's like, what is it? Anxiety. We've used anxiety a lot, and somebody's like, well, sometimes it's just worrying, and that's normal. But it's sometimes when we have a word, we have our own definition. I think maybe on TV, when you see trauma growing up, it was full-on trauma. And you have the trauma team in the hospital. Oh, so it's really serious. Every time you hear trauma, you hear serious. But the definition I've got from somewhere was trauma is a normal human response to abnormal or overwhelming situations.
Yeah, it can apply to everything, anything. You're in the supermarket, somebody's took your car parking space, or they've cut you up, or they've not said thank you and you've let somebody out. Anything.
Train being
those,
cancelled
yeah.
because you're in London or something, whatever it is, not normal. Yeah, that's trauma.
And how me and you could both go to London, get a train cancelled. I might be experienced more by it, and it might be traumatic for me, whereas it might not be for you. So it's so individualized based on our experience of it as opposed to what we perceive it. So we start to, as the adults, start to put things in a hierarchy. Well, if it's this form, if it's neglect, where is it here? This has happened to somebody. Well, this is really bad. And then we start to make these biases and assumptions of how bad somebody's trauma is, and then how quickly they should have got over it as well.
But
And that's
that
not
bit,
helpful.
no, that bit you said there, trauma is very personal because it's based on our own experiences. So the more you travel by train, the more trains are cancelled, the less it impacts you. You're used to it. You've already kind of got a plan B, or you know what you're going to do. But the first time, especially if you're a youngster and you're getting on a train and you've planned your entire day and then the train's cancelled, well, you don't know what to do. And I think as adults, I think we forget how many things we've learnt to deal with things. Yeah. So at some point we had a train cancelled, wasn't great. We phoned up someone when they're before mobiles and we had a really horrible time trying to, but you sorted it out. And since then, technology's helped and all these things, and you've got so many strategies you use when that happens. But when my daughter goes somewhere and then the next train's cancelled, she has none of these resources because it's the first time it's happened. So that for her is trauma. But for me in the same situation, it's like, I'll just do this instead. But that comes from a place of experience. And I think when we are working with children or young people or anyone just younger than us, or even the same age but different experiences in life, they will have very different reactions and experiences to the same situation. And that cannot be understated, those differences. You cannot expect everyone to react to in the same way you do. And I think that's what lots of people do. They have those expectations. Oh, it's fine. Why is it fine to you? Because of X, Y, Z, A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. You know why it's fine. But the next person hasn't got those experiences. It is traumatic. They do not know what's going to happen. They have that uncertainty.
And their resources are very different. So even if you mentioned something about experiencing it quite frequent, and therefore does that reduce the experience of it? And not necessarily for everybody. So it might be for you because you've experienced it and actually you found your resource to be able to cope with that and to be able to process that. But it doesn't mean that it's going to be any less traumatic for you in terms of the experience or the impact on you. So every time it happens, it might be that your body goes back to reliving the first time it happens. Or it brings back a feeling from that you experienced the first time you'd experienced it, or you had a really bad time that you got stuck for ages, or you just couldn't find a route, or you felt like you was abandoned or rejected, or whatever that looks like. So even though it could happen and you're exposed to it again, the trauma is stored in your body as a sensory memory. So when that is experienced again, it can trigger that feeling again through the body. It doesn't mean just because you've done it loads, it doesn't start. So until you process that and acknowledge it and recognize it, that's how then we start to process the experience of it and heal from it. So yeah, it's so interesting because we often think cognitively, well, that I've done it loads of times, so it should be okay the more times it happens. But actually, the trauma is stored in your body as a sensory memory and not in our head.
And also, there's times like, I was going to get a train up to London for a lovely day out and the train got cancelled. Cool, we'll have a lovely day out here. I'm getting a train up to have a really important meeting with work this time, and it literally, my company depends on it, or something really important, and it has to be perfect. Train get cancelled. This is a very different situation. It's the same kind of thing happening, but actually, I was probably dysregulated already by the stress of what was going to happen up there, and this has just tipped me over the edge. Or it might be like, maybe you got made redundant and my daughter worked for M&Co and they went to administration, so my daughter lost her job. When you're 18, it's kind of, oh, I lost my job, but I'm still living at home, it's fine. If you then get made redundant at 40 and you're the primary breadwinner for the house and you've got kids, in theory it's the same thing, but there's a lot more pressure. So yeah, in reality, there is the same thing happening again and again, and kind of not building up their resilience and things like that, or it taking you back. But again, different situations. There's, as you said, when I said earlier about being regulated, but it's the real world. Every situation often is different because there's other things as part of that. It's not, you're not getting a training for no reason. There are lots of other things, and I quite like traveling alone with my kids when they were younger. And it's so much more stressful. So even though one thing on my own is fine, with a family it's completely different. So yeah, it's got to be very personal, and you've just got to trying to walk in someone else's shoes is, I would say, is probably impossible. There are certain things from like you're talking about. When you go into a room, you look for people like yourself. That sense of safety. I'm a 6'3" bloke. Generally, I'm safe everywhere.
Yeah.
And I just walk around oblivious to this. And just the idea of going, so actually, I would walk in somewhere. But I do know it kind of happens because sometimes if I get to a conference first and I stand there, I watch everyone walk in and avoid me because I'm a 6'3" bloke. They go to all the women. All the females come in and talk to the other females, and I get left alone. And there's nothing I can do about it. But they're going for, oh, someone's like me.
Mm-hmm.
That's safe. Bloke, tall, bigger than all. And it's not a judgment or anything about me. It's a it's prejudice. It's tall bloke, situation, safety. It's a safety thing. And that's the only kind of experiences I watch people avoid me in situations. And that's as far as I can relate. But when we talk about walking in each other's shoes, I would say it's really hard to walk in someone else's shoes if they are quite a bit different in their lives to you because of all your personal experiences.
Yeah. And I think there's two things here that you've picked up on. One about when you feel like but people are gravitating to people that look like them, and it feels like. Whereas if everybody came from a trauma-informed lens, somebody would be mindful of the impact that would have on you, and somebody would engage with you because they'd be like, oh, that's not great. That they've noticed that this is what's happening around them. And then walking in somebody else's shoes. So, and that's what like empathic relationships are. You'll never truly understand what that experience is like for somebody. And often somebody says, well, I know what you feel because I've been through X, Y, Z as well. Doesn't matter. Your experience is never going to be the same. And people don't want to hear that, well, I know how that feels because I've done that happened to me too. But actually being able to have that empathic relationship where you try and place yourself with that young individual and that you try and experience what they're feeling, how they're being, what's going on for them. That is probably as close as you're going to get. And that's what somebody wants. Nobody wants you, like you're trying to join them in their place of discomfort. Now, they know you're never going to truly understand, and I think people find it a little bit minimizing or patronizing if you're just saying, actually, I know how you feel. And often we say things like, are you okay? No, they're not okay. But you're asking, are you okay? Because you feel uncomfortable that somebody's in distress and you want them to be okay. So you want to say, are you okay? So they say yes. So you feel okay about it. So when you're asking questions or when you're in a situation, and if you recognize you're feeling uncomfortable in it, because we all struggle with those uncomfortable silences. So people like to talk out of problem solve, or we like to solve people's problems or make it better for them. Those are things that I want the listeners to be able to think about and capture, like, am I a problem solver? Can I just listen and sit with somebody in that uncomfortable feeling that they're experiencing and just be with them? Because that's all somebody generally really wants.
As a bloke, I obviously want to solve every single problem. And one of the things, the amazing Lorraine Peterson, we were at dinner, she was like, what is it with men? Why can't they just let you moan at them and not solve the problem? I don't want the problem solved. I just want to vent. And she said this, and I was like, oh, I didn't know that. I thought whenever my wife was ranting at me, she wanted me to solve her problem. No, she didn't. I completely went, I've got to solve you. I want to help. I want to protect. I want to make you feel better. I want to. And since that light bulb, I've seen it in lots of places. And there's a thing on social media where the boyfriend, his girlfriend was ranting. And he was like, okay, are you in the emotional stage or the solution stage? And she liked that he recognised and went, okay, what support do you need from me? And what I would say, there are situations where I've got no idea what I'm doing. There are absolutely, and I am uncomfortable. And rather than just trying to say there or thoughts and prayers or my condolences or any kind of bog standard phrase which doesn't really mean anything, but it's filling that awkward silence, I'm learning to say things like, I have no idea what to say. I don't have any idea how you're actually feeling. It must, again, I'm trying to say it must be horrible, but is there anything I can do? Do you just want me to sit here? Do you want a coffee? And I try and go, because sometimes that silence, they just like someone near them. And it's learning that has been really powerful for me. And sometimes I said to my daughters, I don't know if I'm going to say this right. I don't know if I'm going to say it wrong. But what I've learned is if I say nothing, it means like I don't care. But if I say something, even if I get it wrong, it's probably better for me to ask in a bad way so you know I care. And it's just been really interesting, not solving the problem.
Yeah.
Not trying to, oh, yeah, I've been here. This is what you do. Oh, you're at the first step. Next week it'll be better. No, can't solve that. That's from my experience. And that their experience might be different. It might be a different situation. So I can't just say everything will be fine. I'll solve the problem, or let's go do this. Sometimes it's just about sitting there and listening.
And eventually people are good problem solvers themselves. So once you start talking it through and somebody's listening, they end up coming to a place that they can land on that feels good for them. And it might not be a solution. It might just be, I just needed to offload that. I needed to say it out aloud. And I actually didn't realise that that's what I was feeling or that's what I was thinking until I said it out aloud. And it's providing that space. And actually, I think with all the technology that's in place and how quick things move, it's going to be a luxury. Like, can you believe we're talking about it being a luxury to be able to sit and have a conversation with somebody that you actually feel listened to? Because when even someone's talking to you, somebody's on a device or they've got a million tabs open in their own head that they're dealing with.
It is a luxury. It is an absolute luxury, which also means it's the best thing you can ever give your children. That undivided, as a parent, as an undivided attention is the best gift you can give your children. I am here for you because you matter. Again, going back to what you said earlier, that sort of, I'm too busy, basically saying you don't matter. Or I'm cooking, so talk to me while I'm cooking, is you don't matter. Giving someone that undivided attention makes them feel important, makes them feel you care. And that, as a parent, is just insanely powerful and amazing. And if you can find that in a school, to actually just stop and just pause, not guillotine stuff as you're talking, not sorting through your bag, not just typing something on your laptop, just stop and having a 2-minute conversation, so much more powerful than people realise.
And I think as well, taking a step forward, everybody's different. So actually somebody might be more responsive. So one of my stepchildren, if I stopped and have a direct conversation, they wouldn't talk to me. Whereas if I'm washing the dishes and having a conversation, so much more fruitful conversation, and it just flows. So it might be that it's knowing your child or knowing the adult that you're with is to be like, okay, what works for them? How can I still be present with that person, but also make it feel comfortable? A lot of their time we talk about eye contact. Eye contact can be really difficult, intimidating, like all sorts. It can be really triggering for some people, but we're told, well, if you're not giving eye contact, then you're not really listening. So it's really knowing that person and tuning to that person. And you can tell quite quickly the way that you're positioned, the way your tone, where you're sitting, etc. Does it feel comfortable? Does it not? Sometimes you might just find yourself repositioning yourself because you feel like you're not quite in the right place, like you're either too close to them or your back's turned towards them or something's not quite right.
There's also something about kind of in your head, if you're facing someone that is confrontational.
Yeah.
You on that side, I'm on this side. I'm telling you what happened. You're already on the other side, and you're going to disagree with me. Whereas if you can sit next to them, so if you're washing and they're drying, or one which has really worked with my daughters is just going for a drive. I need to go to here. Do you want to come with me? And we get 20 minutes of conversation, not looking at each other, next to each other. Really great conversation because you're not facing each other, which is, as you said, it's intimidating. Also, it feels like anytime you're sitting opposite a table from someone, it's going to feel like an interview. You've done something wrong. How many parents still go into a head teacher's office, sit at the side of the desk and feel like a 5-year-old child because they're sitting opposite that head teacher? If you can sit next to someone, it changes the dynamics completely.
And then also thinking about, we've got this need or want for people to talk to us or to open up. So, and it's okay not to. The fact that somebody is just close with you, so you might go driving and you might not say a word, you might just listen to music and just be present with each other. And that's great as well. So moving away from this expectation that if only they just opened up, if only they told me what they really was thinking. So you just keep digging. They'll know that's what the intention is. So just going with it as opposed to, I need them to talk to me. And it might be that they talk to you great. It might be you just sit in silence. It might be just as you're about to pull up and get out, they start sharing something that you think, gosh, if only you'd done that, like when we got into the car. Now it's going to end and it's gone.
But again, there's lots of the intent. That's the bit that I've learned to really kind of draw on with so many things. What is that person's intent? And giving them that luxury of time is powerful. But as you said, in different times, different situations, there might not be that situation. There might be not that confident. I've had deep conversations with my daughter over WhatsApp. She was upstairs, I was downstairs. And it might be just dinner wasn't great and I just messaged, are you okay? That's the intent. I recognised that wasn't right. She obviously wasn't up for discussing. She just wanted to leave the table. Fine. But are you okay is making it very clear that I know something's not right, but she didn't obviously want to talk about it, but I'm just checking you're okay. And I think the children pick up on that intent more than we realise. much more than we realise. Now my daughter's at uni, and I'm, with my neurodiversity, I'm a little bit out of sight, out of mind. I love my daughter. She is amazing. But during the week, I can completely forget about her because I'm focusing on what's in front of me. So I do have to make sure I just drop the odd message.
Yeah.
She's often in my mind, but I don't let her know that. So I'd have to send her a message, hope you're okay, or you weren't feeling well, how are you feeling now? That is a bit of intent. It shows her that I care. And that intent is huge. And sometimes we might be doing things because we care, but we're not letting the other person know. And sometimes we have to make that intent more obvious so they know and notice.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's knowing, isn't it? You know yourself, you've got that awareness. You're like, okay, this is what happened. So you're making a conscious kind of effort every week to remember. It's not because you don't care about your daughter, you just recognize, actually, I'm not so great of letting her know, dropping her message is your way.
And I would say all of that has come from a trauma-informed approach because that's not what I had growing up.
Yeah.
So it's come from me feeling alone, me feeling my parents don't care. And I don't want to pass that on. So how can I change that? What is it I needed that I didn't get? How can I make that difference? And again, it's trauma-informed. Not once today have we mentioned divorce, death, anything like that. We've not mentioned any really big trauma, which is what people think about with trauma. We're talking about the little things.
But
But it's the trauma-informed.
And with every experience of trauma, there will be a loss. So we often think of bereavement as somebody passing away, but there's a loss of something. So with a traumatic experience, it might be, say, a young person's being bullied. Of course, that's a trauma, but there's also a loss. There might be a loss of self-esteem. There might be a loss of identity. And we tend to forget about the loss and the grieving process that goes with the experience of trauma.
I also think that loss, again, you said that if there's bullying going on, there's trauma. And I didn't have a great secondary school life, and I always followed the school rules. It took me a while to learn the school rules weren't there to protect me. The school rules were there to protect the school, not me as a child. And it's at some point I realised the school won't help me. Any school who says, oh, we have no bullying. You do have bullying. Every school has bullying. By staff on staff, staff on pupils, pupils on pupils. It's everywhere. So saying you don't is a lie, but you say it because that's what everyone wants. It's protecting the school and the school's status and reputation. When I finally learned that, I stood up for myself. I never got picked on again after that. But almost like every time it happened, there was a bit of a loss. And then finally, it's like, well, it's not, my kind of that trust in the school was gone. Well, if they're not going to look after me, I'm going to look after me. So when we see things, there's always a backstory that we don't understand.
Absolutely. And when you're in that situation, so you could take that and say, actually, when you're back at a conference and you're being somewhat ignored and people distancing yourself, it could take you back to your experiences in secondary school. And even though you know cognitively it's not the same, you might feel that same way again. And that's the kind of that recognition of that ongoing work that you do. But also if people just, they don't need to know that. That's your backstory for them to engage with. But if everybody took trauma-informed lens and was inclusive and looked past all their biases, or even was aware of biases, we all have them, we're human. If you've got an awareness and you acknowledge them, at least then you can do something about that. And that's what I think people get stuck on. They don't do anything in the fear of getting it wrong, and therefore you just keep doing the same. Whereas this is about, actually, that didn't work so well, what could I do differently next time? And just holding your hands up and being honest with yourself about it.
That bit is that kind of doing that bit you're supposed to, following the rules, following the policy, is it kind of gives people that sense of security. If I follow the policy, then they can't pin it on me, is generally what the ultimate line is. It's if I do I did what I was supposed to do, not my fault. But again, that comes from a space of slightly dysregulated. There is this bit where you know what you should do. You generally know what that child needs. And yes, you might not be able to do it because of the policy. You don't have to make the child feel like they don't matter. There's sometimes where I see some policies or I hear things with schools going on, the rules are more important than the child. And actually, the child's mental health actually has no impact. It's the policy trumps everything. And I think if you're trauma informed as a whole school, your rules would be more relaxed. Which gets me onto one bit, although we haven't got huge amounts of time. Trauma informed practice is not about having less expectations or not holding a standard of behaviour, is it? I just want to touch on that at the end. We're probably going to discuss this again.
Yeah. So often people think that, oh, well, you're just letting kids get away with it. If you talked about trauma-informed practice, then it means you're giving an excuse for children to misbehave, be physically abusive, whatever that might look like, or verbally abusive. That's not what trauma-informed practice is about. Trauma-informed practice is about looking at that behaviour as a form of communication. Nobody gets out of bed in the morning and thinks, do you know what, I'm off to do this and I'm going to cause the most havoc and I want to hurt people. And often when children display behaviour that challenges, and I say behaviour that challenges because it challenges for the adult, child might feel guilty, shame, humiliation, lots of other feelings during and after the episode that's taking place. So us as adults start to dismiss trauma-informed practice because we ourselves are telling ourselves that, well, it's just an excuse, and if we relax everything, then children are just going to use it to their advantage. What we actually see is the opposite taking place. A reduction in behaviour incidences, children engaging in their education, children coming to schools who've got a big attendance problem, healthy relationships between parents and carers and children. So it has a knock-on effect. So yeah, if you do hear these kind of phrases being like, well, it's just an excuse for bad behaviour, challenge it, because that's not the case. And it's people that are misinformed, and maybe they benefit from holding on to those more punitive consequence-based approaches where it's not beneficial for the child. But I'm sure we'll have another conversation all about that.
We will. But it's one of those things is we again, if we think about us as adults, we've got so many different strategies when things aren't going our way. But the children haven't learned that. And so that behaviour is communication. And often they choose that communication. What other communication, what other ways of communicating, what other options do they have? They haven't learned those yet. You learn options through getting things wrong and things like that. So with the children, when they're kind of making those, it's sometimes they don't have any options. And sometimes that might be because of how we have responded previously. So then we aren't listening. Fine, I'll turn this up because you're not listening. So, but as adults, we've got lots more things. But if we're really honest with ourselves, how many of us do things which are not healthy for us on a day-to-day basis? Not healthy for us, maybe in terms of alcohol, maybe in terms of not getting enough sleep, maybe our relationships we have. How many of them do we really deep down know we shouldn't be doing, but we're doing it to cope? We're doing it in lots of different ways. And that is a behaviour which is a communication but we're not listening to ourselves.
Absolutely.
And I think if we sit there and go, actually, I know I shouldn't be doing that. Why am I doing this? This is just self-destructive. We're doing that. It looks so much more subtle as an adult. But as a child, that's kind of we see. But we're doing the same stuff as adults. But it's kind of socially acceptable.
And And the even other crazy thing to think about is actually we've got more tolerance for dogs. So if dogs jump up, bark, etc., we all like, oh, that's nice, and we try and soothe the dog, or we have the tolerance. If a child displays some behaviour that we don't like, we're not very tolerating of it, and that's interesting in itself.
Wow, that's a whole other conversation. I try not to start because we're already running out of time. But
Yeah,
you are absolutely right. And not only do we kind of, wow, that's a whole thing. Wow, that's because not only do we kind of accept that a dog will jump up and maybe get your clothes dirty, and you go, and they go, oh, sorry. But if you didn't have a go at them for their dog not being on a lead, that parent is absolutely adamant that they've done nothing wrong. And every other dog owner will come along and protect them. But a moment a child is doing the same, not jumping up but doing something which everyone doesn't like, that parent will feel that it's their fault. And no one will come to support them. Everyone will point at them. So it's a whole completely different situation. And it is in reality so much worse that actually that protection around the dog doing what it wants, that's fine.
It's going to jump on your sofas. It's going to run across the floors with the muddy paws. It's going to eat food it shouldn't do. It's going to jump on the table. All of those things we're okay with as dog owners, lovers.
And if one of you speaks up, everyone else will protect the dog.
Yeah.
But not if it's a child. Wow, that's just a whole thing that's going to go around my head for the rest of this day and probably a lot longer. But it is true.
And that's what trauma-informed practice is about. How do we open our eyes to these things and think, actually, how does this make... And this is just way my brain works. This doesn't make logical sense. Why do we do this, and why is that okay, and this is not okay? And well,
but as soon as you switch that, it was a child doing that, that parent now has trauma because everyone's pointing at them. So the parent has trauma. And if they're not trauma informed, if they're not regulated, and it's hard to be in those situations to be regulated. And it's hard to be when your child then does something else, that trauma is going to come back, or they're going to look at me again, and you're dysregulated again. And that just goes on. And then the school sends you an email and you go in. That trauma just continues for you as a parent. We haven't even got to the child yet.
Yeah, it's a reflection of me. That child is a reflection of me and my parenting skills.
I've failed. And you don't start thinking I failed. That comes from external. That's everyone telling you failed. And it is just about, and again, I do sometimes, I'm much better now, but when you're on a plane and there's a child screaming, you're like, oh God, the parents, why did you do this? They don't intentionally do it. And generally you can probably work it out, but also it might be the years, there's so many reasons. And generally I'm just like, it doesn't bother me anymore. I know the parent's not having a great time. I know they're self-conscious. I know the child's not having a great time because they're screaming and crying. And they're all doing the best they can. Can I add anything positive to that situation? No. So I'm going to ignore it. Because that's, rather than doing anything, I'm going to ignore it. Because I know they're all doing the best they can.
Yeah.
I could keep talking for ages. But we're not. We're already at 50 odd minutes already. So I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you for coming on the show today. It's one of the topics which I've heard for so many years and we've never done on the podcast. I don't know how or why we've missed it, but we've done it now. So I'm really happy. And we are going to record some more podcasts in this area over the next month or two. So they'll be coming out as well. But it's one of the things that we've done an episode on relational practice, which is kind of in the same zone. It's the same sort of stuff. And it's one of the things where I think a lot of people listening would be going, oh, I do that. Oh, I do that. Oh, yes, of course, I do that. Or and not realising actually that is trauma-informed. And actually you might be doing this already. But it is what you really want is that whole school going into it.
Whole school, whole system, community, everywhere it should be. So the more we can raise awareness, and it doesn't matter if, as long as everybody starts doing something, then it'll infiltrate into those systems. So if you're going into your work environment and you're line managing and you're taking a trauma-informed approach to line management, then that's our way to infiltrate the systems.
And if someone won't kind of, I'm not interested in trauma reform, just get them to listen to this podcast. 'Cause that's the whole point of this podcast. It's a nice conversation exploring what it really means, rather than a full-on hour-long lecture on what it is.
Yeah.
And what you have to do is me asking those stupid questions. Asking, so it's this, or it's like this? And you're going, yes, that is it. And that's the whole point, is people not realising how tiny little things we do are in reality trauma-informed. We're just going, there's probably a reason for this. I wonder what it is. And just changing your reaction.
Yeah.
And that can have,
Curiosity and relationship focus.
yes. And what's interesting, have you watched Ted Lasso?
I haven't, like.
You will love it.
Okay.
It's one of the favorites, be curious, not judgmental. And there's so many things he lives his life. And he is such a happy person. But he, to me, is a trauma-informed person. He's going through his own trauma. And he's kind of overcompensating, maybe. But he just looks at people and going, they're acting that way because of a reason. And I'm going to show them that it can be a different way. And it's a really nice thing. But his things like be curious, not judgmental, and so many little things he does really impacted me. And you watch how characters grow. It's a really great series. And it's really worth watching it again and again, because you'll focus on different characters and how they change. And it's just this one person, in reality, not caring. It's a football team thing. It's about football. Not caring about winning. He's about making people be the best they can be. What happens is they start winning when they're the best they can be.
Right.
And I think in schools, we focus on attainment and attendance. We focus on the numbers and we have graphs. That's focusing on winning.
Mm-hmm.
If you focus on helping your children to be the best children and the best young people they can be, those attendance and those attainment numbers are going to go up. But it's about finding what makes each one tick and what's their best, not the best, not a model, the best pupil, the best version of themselves.
And there's so much to unpack there, because that's the system. I wouldn't feel like it's fair to say actually if teachers did things differently or educational staff, that's a whole system reform, because actually we've got an old age Victorian based system that we just keep dragging through year after year.
And there are teachers who completely get this.
Yeah.
Especially a lot of those people listening, the Senkos, you're already on board with this. It's a whole school change and it's got to come from the top.
Absolutely.
Let's wrap it up. So, as always, I have links from my guests, so you'll be able to find a website for Innovating Minds and lots of social medias, and also Asha's email address. And as always, you'll find those in the show notes or on the Zencast website. So thank you for listening to the show. If you aren't following us on social media, you'll find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. Generally search for the Zencast and you'll find us. And the Zencast is created and produced by us here at B Squared. Come on, we know everyone should know B Squared by now. We are here to show the small steps of progress pupils with SEND make. But do you know about Autism Progress? This is our framework for helping profile a pupil's autism and how it impacts them. It's based on certs and looks at communication, social interaction, emotional regulation, and flexible thinking. And there's also a wide range of strategies to support the pupils. So if you do have children who are maybe working at a low level, but still working on the primary curriculum but are non-verbal, might be Autism Progress can help you with that. So actually, what is it they kind of need that support in those softer skills? So visit the B Square website or click on the meeting link in the show notes to book a meeting with me to take you through the assessment software and Autism Progress. So thank you for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Zencast. It's goodbye from me.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.